Welcome. As Joe said, this is the very first topic we did in Phoenix many years ago. Beauty professionals, what do they do all day, or what the heck do they do all day? My name is Ted Ritter, as Joe said, along with Brooke on the national board, one of the first few members of the Guild. I think, I always like to kind of start with why are we here? What's our mission statement? And it's really to be the premier source of education, coaching, and support for the business development profession. I, for one, have enjoyed my time of the last 4 years with the group and look forward to many years to come. I am with, actually, LMI 360. We're happy to be the technology sponsor during our time in the pandemic and have offered our tech platforms for both the certificate platform and our meetings, and happy to do so. Really great board, advisory board in Denver. As Joe said, I think really just tremendous from, we had one live meeting, and you guys have been just running great. So thanks so much to everybody that's supporting this. I think, beyond the mission statement, focus to bridge the gap between business development and operations, or look at the alignment and how to do business better, more efficiently, more profitably. Collaborate, educate business development and operations personnel on definition, process, and teamwork, maximize return on business development investment. And of course, I think, advance profession. So, we're cognizant of budgets and all that, but there really are some great privileges of becoming a member. It can definitely maximize return. There's definitely discounts, training events, there's members-only events. It's a unique business model or membership model, and it's a 1+1 to bring someone from your operational team to the meetings. So to get, that cross-talk, plus any other guests that you like. Want to elevate the profession, and you can do all this online. It's pretty easy. So, definitely take advantage of the benefits. We've got some surprises coming in 2021 with some additional benefits, so that'll be cool. Currently 3 chapters. Phoenix was the first, in Southern California and Denver. We have, because I think of COVID, probably the one positive note that we can all share is, Joseph, for the certificate program, we really have coast-to-coast participation. We also are seeing on our meetings, really it's across many more geographies than where we have chapters. We do produce a quarterly newsletter. We really seek the input from each of the chapter leadership groups to provide relevant content that reflects what's unique and what's common across all of our chapters. Professional business developer, no longer CBD. I think it was a high time we changed that. It's online, it's virtual, it's interactive, and Module 5 is coming up on October 20th. You can start anytime, so we encourage you to check that out if you like. Coming up, we've got some cool stuff. Phoenix is doing an event in conjunction with SNPS, generating AEC work in certain times. Everyone will get a link to that. We'll do a shout out for that here shortly. I think Joe already mentioned the Southern California meeting, Manifesting Future Business. I think that's going to be a good one. We're going to do our first workshop, which the Phoenix chapter is hosting on strategic planning and templates for success. And then we are going to do our first ever national event, which will be virtual PVD holiday mixer and graduation ceremony combined. With that, I think I'll turn it over to Helene. So I slotted your slides into the deck, and I'll just push the button whenever you're going.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted. It's great to see you up here. And thank everybody for coming out for this tonight or today. And so I really want to, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview here as we get started. We're going to do some self-introductions. I'm going to introduce myself, and then we'll go through each of the panelists to have them talk just a little bit more about their background, how they decided to choose business development as their career. and then I'll get into our slides here. So I entered the industry in 1995, and I was providing marketing services to real estate agents then. So I have a journalism background and degree, and I kind of went the whole marketing route into the industry. And then I got hired by a company called Hanscom, and they were a program management firm. They did cost estimating and value engineering. So it was sort of the precursor to what we now have as a very popular segment of the market as owner's rep firms. So I started out with them and worked for a couple of civil engineering firms. About 10 years of my career was with civil engineering firms. I spent 2 years working with Maggie at Palace Construction. And so that was awesome. And then in 08, 09, when the housing market crashed, I started my own company, and it was Strategic Development Services. And I also starting my family at the time. And so it just worked out great. And I did that for about 10 years. And so I actually am just now relaunching that firm and really taken the 25 years of business development and marketing expertise that I have to start really elevating it in the market and helping those who are in the role of business developer and having to win work for their firms to, coach and mentor and provide strategy in those scenarios. So I'm super excited because I got to be, the moderator here today. Every one of the panelists have been a part of those 25 years of my career, either as a great friend, which I would say they all are, and also a mentor in certain scenarios. So I'm going to just recall really quick where we all met, because I think it's important to that how we all do this relationship thing as we develop in our careers. Jim and I were on a committee for SMPS, Society for Marketing Professionals, and he even recalled what Garden Gummison was where we would meet for these program committee meetings in like 98. Melissa, also, we were on a committee together for SMPS, and the thing that was great about that experience is that even after we all got off of that committee, the 5 of us or so would meet every month. We'd either have a drinks or dinner, and we really built that relationship over all of this time. So that was a really, it's been very instrumental in my career and building my network. And Shelley, the same thing, although we met at a school district event, and you were with Loris, another civil engineering firm way back in the day. And so, that was the beginning of 25 years of friendship. So you'll hear that theme throughout this, because that's what relationships do and really are the foundation of what we all do as business developers. So I'm going to go next to Melissa. Give us a little bit of your background, and you can throw it over to Shelley, and Shelley, you tag
Okay.
Jim at the end.
Again, thanks for having me. Again, Melissa Winburn with MBH. I think this is about my 20th year. Oh, where the time flies. I hope I have my smoothed out, that mirror thing on here so everything looks nice and smooth. Started, go figure, with King Soopers and advertising. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and got a call from a recruiter to go work for a land planner, landscape architect. And that's how I started 20 years ago, more on the graphics and marketing side. Fast forward into a couple really large firms from architecture, and then really made my way into engineering on the MEP side, which I really enjoyed. Did a little stint in acoustics for 5 years, and back now to an architecture firm. And honestly, it's, as Helene mentioned, it has been really growing this network of people. When you decide, I think, to really step out of the marketing realm, and I was really leery about that years ago, and I just thought to myself, I'm just not somebody that can sit at a desk all day long. I can't keep doing proposals. Believe it or not, I was very shy growing up, and you know, wasn't very comfortable in my own skin. And then something just switched. And I thought, you know what, this feels better, having this connection and really fostering these relationships. So I made the jump. You know, like in any industry, we've got ups and downs with, you know, recessions and stuff, but the network has been fantastic. And most of these people, and a handful of them that are on here, I'm happy to call friends, and we have a long history together. So it's been great. And with that, I will hand it off to Shelley.
Hello. I'm Shelley Hartnett. I actually went to school to get a degree to be an architect. And then I started and I said, these people are crazy. I can't do this. So my mom said, take some business classes. So I did. So I ended up with a degree in architecture and degree in business. And I interviewed at all the architecture firms, and I interviewed at all like the Carson Hagen and the advertising and those types of firms, until one day some lady said, you know, you can do that for a living. You can market. And so she introduced me to SMPS. So, so that was, I started as a drafter and helping with marketing in 1989 before I graduated. And then my first job was with an architecture firm, and I was the drafter, and I just started learning, you know, doing the 254s and 255s and the proposals and how to write a press release and all those fun things. And kind of like everyone else here, you know, you just start and see where it takes you. And I don't know if anyone knows Mark Shaw, who used to be with ENR. I don't know if he's still with ENR, but he looked at me, he goes, you're like a cat. He goes, the ship starts to sink and you just jump off and you can find something to float on, because there's so many times where someone's coming into Denver and we're starting and it's going to be great. And then they just leave and you're standing here going, ah, and we go out there and we develop business for them based on our reputation. I'm selling me, and we're going to follow through and we're going to do a good job. So that always grinds my great. But anyway, I digress. So I started, so this is 30 some years in this industry, and started like most of you in marketing. And I think part of that is too, because we were females early in this industry, and, you know, otherwise it was more sales. And that's not something, like Melissa said, and everyone says, it's all about relationships. So started in the spring. So I've been in Denver ever since, and involved in all kinds of different associations and the networking and this group of people, and there's so many others that we don't say that makes it worthwhile, makes you get up in the morning every day. So, and one of them is Jim Miller.
Very nice.
That's you, Jim.
Thanks, Shelley. I am Jim Miller, and I started in this business way too long ago. I was just doing the math while we're sitting here, and I can't believe it, 37 years ago that I started. And I went to school to be an architect. They were crazy people, so I switched over to the School of Engineering. They were really boring people. I'm just kidding. And came out and worked for construction companies for all of my career, basically. And at some point in time, one of the guys I worked for said, you talk way too much. You should put you in business development and marketing. Long before that even existed, as Aline said, I think, or maybe Shelley, you said that back in those days, it wasn't even invented. You either hard bid work or you had relationships through the owners of the companies. So I've been trying to figure out how this crazy world of our works ever since. Maybe one of these days I'll figure it out. And in the meantime, I'm here to listen to these wonderful experts tell us all how it's done.
All right. All right. Thank you, panelists. So Ted, if you want to hit the next slide, I'll go into this little very quick overview. Let's see.
Give me one sec,
Okay.
and I'll bring the share back up.
I just want to give an overview of really the competencies and tasks that are related in our industry. ENR, I've got a little clip from ENR. I want to talk to you about what the Business Development Guild holds as those competencies. And then we're going to roll right into what our panelists seriously do all day. But I did want to go back up one, let's see. One more. So the BD Guild has defined our profession as the function of creating those long-term value, creating that value for an organization through, okay, my little thing is covered up. Hold on. Through, so creating, new customers through our markets and our relationships. And then we, as those professionals, are the doers of such deeds, with some accountability and a goal setting involved in what we do. So that's a quick definition by the BD Guild. And then they also, as they talked about, offer the PBD, which then you're learning more about these competencies. Real quick, I'm just going to give you what those include on the next slide. So it's very BD oriented. So, which is fantastic, because that's what it is, right? So the pursuit, what is that? What is the pursuit, and how do we create those for our firms? The BD models that are utilized within each firm, and then the roles that either the BD that those encompass, could be to a seller, could be a pure BD person. They talk about ethics and politics, which I would love to learn, their take on that in business development. Marketing research, which is a fundamental, right? How do you build your pipeline, build your opportunities, and then track them through your marketing research? So, and then there are third module is expectations. How do you measure your success? Strategic planning, which is core to what we all do. What is the return on those relationships, and how do you leverage your network, like we've talked out a little bit about, very little bit about. Delivery methods, which is, nobody teaches you that, right? You have to figure that out, whatever firm you're in, whether, mostly that comes through obviously on the GC side, but all firms and disciplines need to know what are the delivery methods and how is the owner and contractor and designer delivering that project. Budgeting and operations, understanding your business risk, and then finally they go over your leadership style, which is fantastic, and then how do you create these clients for life and these relationships for life. Okay, so that's the BD Guild. And then this is out of VNR. Scott Butler wrote an article, which I'm happy to share with you all. But it was talking about the differences between doer sellers and the pure BD professional, breaking down those tasks and things that need to get done within the life of a business developer and those folks who are winning work for your firm in quite some really tidy categories. So I wanted to share that with you. I'm not going to go through the differences, but as far as it was some research that was done and some surveys that went out to those who do that kind of work, either for your firm as a business developer or a seller. And then SMPS, those domains that they do their CPSM, and these are the things that they are training on and making sure that you are competent in when you take their CPSM. So that's just a very quick overview, and then we can save this one for the very end if you want. Of course, we'll have this information for you guys, and this is a really key thing about any networking event that you go to. Always make a point to find out who and connect with your panelists and your speakers. I have done that over my career and created awesome relationships because the speakers are generally in our industry are very open to talking and teaching and relating to you. So do not hesitate to reach out to us afterwards if you have any other questions. So we have tons of questions, and I want to start rolling into those because we're going to eat up all this time. There's so many good questions. So the title of our program is what do we do all day, right? So I do want to give a little airtime to each of you panelists to tell me and us take your typical morning, or take your typical afternoon. Give me a very clear shot into how you organize a typical day, a day in the life. So let's go with Shelley and learn from you first.
See, the problem is I don't have a typical day. So that's what we were talking about. But in general, I was going through thinking about this, that when things are back to normal, and they are getting back to normal, and I really did realize that I'm out of shape because I started, you have a breakfast or a coffee, and you're out with someone, whether it's a client or a leads group, then you'll find a place where you can sit down and do the follow-up after that, sending things and following up with people. Then you go to your lunch. Either it's a lunch and learn presentation for me, or again, meeting with a client like I did today. And then finding that follow-up, catch-up time, because after those meetings, you have to grab that information and do that follow-up right away. And then depending on the night, you can, with Melissa, she's like, nope, it's workout night. I'm getting home at this time. So she's very disciplined. But, if there's all of a sudden now the events are coming back where they're going to be layered on top of each other. So you go to an event or two on the way home. So I did that a couple days last week or this month. And I was just like, oh, I'm out of shape because I used to be able to do this. I'm exhausted. So I have to get kind of back into that because you're always on, you have to be there. You have to be listening. You have to make sure that you're helping them as much as they're helping you. Make sure you're valuable and you're not wasting anybody's time. So that can be a majority of my typical days. But then I was telling Helene too, I always look into my week on Sundays and say, there are my chunks of time. And then I block them out. And those are my research time. Those are my following up on different associations, different committees, and all those other types of things that we have to do, or helping my marketing group edit things and write things up. So that's a typical busy day for me.
Some snippets. Okay, Melissa, what would you say that you could share with us as far as, those tasks, those things that you are regularly doing in your day?
So I'll preface this, and it might come up a little bit later, that COVID has changed our day. So for what I have learned, and I also need to say I started in February with MBH. So, you're onboarding and then all of a sudden you're quarantined at the house. I find that my typical day currently is blocking off my entire Monday and typically a Friday. And it's research. I have subscriptions to so many different publications that you can read about what's happening, who's getting promoted, who's moving. So I want to gather as much information on potential projects coming. I will go look at planning meeting minutes to see what's going on in zoning. So it's kind of, I want to say it's like stockpiling my week of, okay, here's where I'm focused. So I like to have those 2 days because, as Shelley said, you've got to make time for follow-up. If I can get my research done, once you're in the mix of it, and now that things are coming back, I'm extremely selective now on what I go do because as Shelley mentioned, it's got to be beneficial for me as well as whoever we're meeting with, and I can't take that time because I have to have my time too. And people have families, so I've learned to be very disciplined on research, very strategic, follow-ups, meetings, events, and my time. So, and that's more now learning that in COVID than before when there was so much to do and so many things to go to, that I think you can get lost in the bushes and you get too frazzled and you're not that productive. So mine now is much more focused.
So how do you schedule for your week or your month as far as your meetings? Do you do it all in one chunk? Do you do it as you see things come up? Is there a way that you particularly schedule for yourself to be at places?
I don't like to overschedule anymore because I do want that time for that research and follow-up. So if I look, right now, how I'm organizing my schedule is usually about 2 weeks out. And then plus you have to factor in coming back from vacation and then the follow-ups. So I try to push things out at least a week or two, knowing people are probably going to meet on Zoom and scheduling. I don't like to have the back-to-back anymore. Has gotten me a little too frazzled. So I feel like I'm much better at being prepared and organized if I have a little more space in between. So.
Great. Okay, Jim, it's your shot at the day in the life of Jim Miller.
Well, I have tell people all the time that I'm trying to cut back to working half days. So that's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Ah, nice.
And I'll see if I can get there one of these days. But so my typical day, again, pre-COVID days, was Mondays are internal meetings for the first part of the morning. And then I typically do 4 breakfasts, 5 lunches, and 3 or 4 dinners every week. So it's a lot of networking, a lot of, you know, I look at what's my role, what's my ROI for the company, and it's all about finding leads, processing those leads, and then positioning the firm to be best suited to win those leads. So my time is, it's all over the board, and as Shelley said, there's no such thing as an average day, because about the time I plan my day, then you get 5 or 6 calls that you made 2 weeks ago come back in, and it just blows the whole day up when somebody says, hey, I got something for you to look at. And then all those wonderful things that I had on my list just get pushed to the side. So for me, in a pure BD role, it is a lot of meetings. You asked about, you know, the discipline of scheduling. I have found it easiest for me to fill my calendar with a lot of standing meetings, where I will meet with folks that are really rich in sharing networking, are rich in sharing leads with me, and hopefully I can return the favor to them. But set them up as standing meetings so they don't have to think too much about it, kind of the power of habit. So I will schedule those meetings for not days, not weeks, but years in advance, where we, you know, meet the 3rd Thursday of every month, every even month or odd month or whatever. Just put those in my calendar, and then that allows me to go somewhat on autopilot and try to focus. But I will say the hardest part in the schedule is say, okay, you leave the house at 7 o'clock, you meet somebody for breakfast at 7:30, you get in the office at 9:30, you got to leave the office at 11 o'clock to make an 11:30 meeting, then you get back to the office at 1:30, then you got to leave the office at 4:30 for either a happy hour or a dinner. You count the hours in between there. So I get from 9:30 to 11, then I've got from 1:30 to 3 or 4. And those are oftentimes taken up with internal meetings and other things you have going on to do your job. So it leaves precious little time to do what may be the most important part of our job, and that's to follow up on those leads and to nurture those relationships. So it's not easy. It's pretty crazy at times, and but it keeps you going. And
Yeah.
37 years later, I'm still trying to figure it out.
All right, great. Thank you all for that.
So for those of you who have strong boundaries, you'll be much better at this job than I am. So
discipline, right? It is. There's a lot of balls you have to juggle to make it all work. So strategic planning is the foundation for knowing what your roadmap is going to be on what clients to pursue and what projects to pursue. Can you each talk about how your firm does strategic planning and what your role in that process is? And I'm going to go back to you, Jim, since you're on up the press there.
Sure, and we're in the process right now of doing strategic planning, and for us, it's a firm-wide event. We decided after 2008 to tear down the silo of business development and make it, instead of being a 1-person or 2-person or department event, that it was you know, clearly communicated, and tried to change the culture in the company that everybody's involved in business development. So when we do our strategic planning, especially on the BD side, it involves our entire leadership team. And we just had a couple-day offsite a couple weeks ago where we look at you know, what's working, what's not working, where are we today, where do we want to go, what are the steps it takes to get there. And actually I'm writing that up as today, and have to turn it in tomorrow. But we have tried to be extremely disciplined in our the markets that we go after, the type of works that we go after, the clients that we want to do business with, and try to stay in those lanes and not get out of them. Currently at Pinkard, we have 5 markets that we pursue, and I keep telling myself I'm not allowed to talk to anybody that's not involved in those 5 markets. And then within that, my role is to find those targeted clients, those clients that we want to do business with. And that involves, a lot of research, back checking, building relationships, finding out how they do business with other firms, and then try to position ourselves to get there. Part of the business development plan for Pinkard is a seller-doer model. So in my role as business development, I have to work with folks throughout the company and helping them either build their relationships or assign leads, take volunteers to track a lead and keep going, holding them accountable and responsible for that. So strategic planning is certainly the foundation and the lifeblood of any business development person. For years, it was just a shotgun. If there was a shiny object, you chased it, and which fits great with my personality, but not so great with the results for the company. And so being as strategic as we can in every aspect of our business, we just, really, really strive hard to do that. It's very, very difficult because opportunities come at you from who knows where, and everything you say yes to means you're saying no to something else, especially if you're a contractor and you have a limited capacity based on your superintendents or project managers. So trying to say, hey, we have too much work in one market and not enough in another market. Do we really say no to a project that comes our way that we could win, and so that we have capacity in another? Those are all the tough strategic answers that we have to deal with every single day. And especially in a COVID environment when maybe you're just trying to keep your backlog as full as you can.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay, great. Melissa, why don't you go next with how your firm does strategic planning and how you're involved in it throughout the year.
Well, since I'm still a little new, although it doesn't feel like that since it's Groundhog Day every day and it's February to October, I'm very fortunate having worked from smaller firms where you're really entrenched, maybe bringing in a third-party consultant to help with the strategic planning, to we're a larger firm now, 175 to 200. Our plans are all on our intranet. So we're very, it's accessible to every employee. Because the way this firm is tiered, it's very siloed into, you've got your principal levels, and we're so spread out. So my involvement, we haven't started our strategic planning so much for MBH. I'm just going off of the previous plans, but I report to another VP in business development who oversees the 3 offices. So it's a little different. When we were a smaller firm, it was, we did hire outside consultants. We had all staff meetings. It was everybody's input put into the plan. And then, pretty much quarterly follow-ups to make sure we're following the plan. And I think Jim kind of nailed it on the head. You're the liaison to, assigning a principal, assigning a project manager, somebody else has a client, and you're really the catalyst to make the connections and help them move forward to create the business, to develop the business. So I'm, MBH is still, still somewhat new. So I'm going to be excited to see how this process goes, because we are in COVID and that has changed so much for everybody, because we're so used to all being together and the leadership retreats.
Right. The communication piece. Yeah.
And we were told that we are not going back into the office probably till January 1. So that changes a lot of dynamic, although Zoom is great. But our strategic plan really comes from the top. And because I'm so new, I'm not going to have a lot of input except what my markets are and my network is, to where I can tap into and grow the Denver market. So.
Okay. All right, cool. Shelley, You've been with StressCon for a while, and you've probably seen that process go throughout the year. So I'd love to hear about how you also track it or check back in after the process is, established.
Yeah, they didn't do much. So when I came in, I brought the processes with me. So I kind of had to start that because it's really something that wasn't a formal process. So it's something I started when I got here about 5 years ago, and they're like, we do this and this is how we do that. And I go, why? It's like, why are you chasing this? Because that's where all the money's coming from. That's where, that's where the growth is. You need to know the why. So I had to start that over, and now they're doing great. So I put it together twice a year. And I always say this, I am one of those people. I like the BD plans. We like the marketing plans. I like the strategic plan because they all feed into each other. And as we know, and like Jim was saying, all of my days scheduled and set, and then all those lines that I've been setting, I had 2 calls today as I'm in the car. It's like, can you look at this project? Can you look at, so now I have to stop and redo everything I was going to do for the day. But the great thing is about that plan is you have your roadmap to come back to. So we will do this, but you can always come back in because you have that map. So you know where you're supposed to be headed and what you're supposed to be doing. So I put it together twice a year. We make sure our marketing is involved. This year, we just did it in August. And again, reassess what COVID's done. Like Jim was saying, we're going to continue in certain markets. We're going to really push harder to bring up other markets that we hadn't been pushing as hard on, and those types of things. So, and again, then I push it out to all of our project managers. I have 16 project managers who are seller doer, and that I kind of just make sure everybody's on the same level and has the same plan. So.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so I know we have talked about COVID. There's a couple different questions that came in about COVID. And so I think ultimately we know everything has changed and we're not getting to do all the events and things that we have in the past. So how are, and I'll go back with you, Shelley, how are you maintaining or supplementing or changing your face-to-face meetings and also your networking? How are you doing that now with COVID?
Well, now I am doing, again, we don't have those big events to do because they used to help with follow-up. You make those calls and those emails and you're ghosted. And then you go to those events and you see those people that I wanted to talk to this person, this person, this person. So you don't have that anymore. So it's just much more focused. I still am, as we were able to get out, in April, I started golfing because I could, and as things started opening up, if people were comfortable, we would meet outside and have a coffee or that type of thing. And we've done lunch and learns. We've moved those all to virtual. But we did do one the other day. They wanted us where they were okay with it in the office. So it's much more targeted, which is fine. And because we need to be much more targeted, but trying to get my team on board to do that and follow up because we're still very busy bidding and budgeting. Thank goodness. Yeah, but COVID, it was just more of, I did a lot of research. I helped with the marketing, I helped editing, and just redid a bunch of different plans and that helped me keep going and all of this type of thing. Lots of phone calls.
Do you find people responsive to doing a Zoom meeting sort of on the fly, or do you feel like those are meetings that you have to kind of pre-plan out? Will people jump on a Zoom just to say hi now, or are you calling more?
I didn't. I called because this is not my, even when, so I was talking, I'm on a ULI committee, and during that committee, we have a developer talking, and I'm just ahead, and I could chat on the side, and you try and follow up with that. Like you were saying, you want to talk to the panelists afterward, and that's okay, but it doesn't always work because I have not made that connection. After a panel is done in person, you walk up and shake their hand and look them in the eye and say, hey, can I call you for coffee so we can talk about this, this, and this? You bet. And so you make that call, you get that connection. So this has made it much more difficult. So you have to work around them. It takes, I think it doubles the workload of trying to make that connection. It has for me.
Okay. So Jim, I know we talked really briefly about your method per se of communicating and, you know, really where you're most successful via it. So can you talk to us about that and also how it's changed for you in COVID? You know, how do you get a hold of people? What is your highest rate of success in which communication method? You know, obviously Zoom is now another option, right? But you were telling me what's been most effective. So could you share that with everyone?
I could if I could remember what I told you, but
Oh man, I remember.
I,
You're a phone, you are the phone guy. Like you
I
would rather be on the phone with folks.
absolutely. And you know, what do they say? 7% of communication is the written word, 13 is the spoken word, and 90% is your, or 80% is your, the body language and just, you know, all the other nonverbal communication. So I'm definitely in that category. I try to stay away from um, texts just because I think that's not a very good way. However, it wasn't too long ago I did a focus group and I invited a whole bunch of millennials to come, and these are millennials working for developers that are decision makers that, if not already, soon will be deciding what architect, what contractor they're going to hire. And we spent an afternoon together, and I was just asking them about their communication preferences. And I was terrified that somebody would say, "Oh, I only text," or "Oh, you know, Twitter me," or something. And I don't even know how to do a tweet, if that's what it's called. Thank you, President Trump. Um,
Mhm.
but it was all across the board. So, you know, some folks were saying, "Don't ever leave me a voicemail." Um, because it's an annoyance. And I thought, ooh, it's the last thing I want to do is annoy somebody. And others were knowing, no, I want to meet in person, and others phone calls. So I think the critical point is really finding out what your client prefers. And you just, you know, you just got to ask them, hey, what's the best way for me to get in touch with you? And I'm still of the, you know, if we can meet face to face, I will do that every single time, which is why you do a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner. Um,
Mhm.
and you know, communication is the key to what we do, and so much of it is, for me anyway, is when I'm meeting with clients, I'm pre-qualifying them as much as they are me. I need to know, is this somebody that we want to do business with, whether it's an architect or an owner, a developer, an owner's rep. Is this somebody that we can be successful with? And that's part of my role to the company. So the communication is a huge part of that, and you just got to figure out what is going to allow you to be most successful. Communicating words, that doesn't tell me, is this somebody I want to work with? It doesn't tell me, is this somebody I can trust? That are they going to treat us well? So I need to get to that, to the voice, the intonation. And the reason I said so much for me is on the phone is because more often than not, I know these people. I've, you know, invested enough time that I know most of our clients and know many of our targeted clients. So I've already done the face-to-face. And once you have that as a foundation, you already know who these people are. And the reason I'm talking to them on the phone is probably because I do want to work with them. And then we can communicate. And then there's, you know, you can laugh and you can joke and you can have the intonation in there. And you can't do that through an email. Now, I will
Yeah.
tell you that I follow up almost every single phone call I have. I follow it up with an email just to say, hey, thanks for your time today. And I want to make sure they have my contact information at their fingertips. And so it's a both and on that. But I think the real key, especially if you're trying to develop a relationship, is understand from your client's perspective, how do they like to communicate?
Great. Perfect. So Melissa, I'm not going to ask you the COVID question because you alluded to it a little bit earlier, but it is a good segue, Jim, into another question. And that is, when you're talking about, you know, you've established these relationships over time, we have a question that is, what departments or some of the departments could you recommend or that you have consistently been in contact with over your time in organizations? Where is the focus of your attention in an organization as far as the department? And I guess if you've got public work versus private work, I guess this really is more of a public question. Is it facilities persons? Is it, you know, who do you seek out most as far as departments that you are reaching out to and establishing relationships in?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for us, it's absolutely on the facility side. I want to meet the director of public works, the director of, community affairs. I want to meet those folks who know not only what's coming down the line, which would be the community affairs type people, but also are going to be the ones responsible for hiring me. So I'm always looking for who's the decision maker that's going to say pick Pinkard, as opposed to a city councilman, which may be great, but they're there for 3 to 4 years and gone. And then you got to start all over again. So, and the last thing I want to do to any facilities person is make them feel like, because I have a relationship with somebody else, that I'm going around their back. So on the public side, it's absolutely the public, the directors of public works, directors of facilities, what have you. And in many regards, it's that way too on the private side, especially in the healthcare, with the facilities director, director of planning for hospitals, healthcare. On the private developer side, you just got to find out, who's the owner, because they're going to make the decision 99 times out of 100, and you build a relationship with them.
Maybe Melissa, you can add to that too, because you do a lot of private work with restaurants and retail and that kind of thing. So who do you reach out to? Who do you find like, this is who I want to speak to?
Right. So we are 100% private. So this was new to me coming aboard, having been in the public sector for most of my career. What I have found, which is obviously why I research so much, because in my reading, I can see who is expanding, what kind of chains are coming in, grocery stores, like say Target is one of our biggest clients that we've had for over 20 years, or places like Mod's Pizza, Pachi's Kitchen, Yard House. So for me, it's really getting to know the brokers, and the brokers will give us an in on, okay, their client, say Mod Pizza, is looking at 3 or 4 spaces. And then we get an intro, or I use my network to get an intro to that. Or it's, for instance, we will do a study for a broker to help position a building that looks viable and that might look really great for a developer. So then I have an in with the developer. So I can at least pitch to the developer. Again, a lot of them, because we are so spread out, a lot of us aren't meeting face to face. And if I have to self-quarantine for traveling, I'm just not allowed to go out. So it's really been a lot of Zoom calls. And I find that doing a little pitch on if we have a project or a potential, we could help them solve a problem and get their best ROI for their project. I'm getting a better response followed by a Zoom meeting. And that at least starts the conversation of how do you vet your architectural teams. But again, to Jim's point, it's really hard when you don't have that face-to-face. But if this is for now the best that we can do, I find that most developers and brokers have been very open to meeting, at least starting the conversation.
Great. Well, that's really good. Okay, so we just have about 10 minutes left, and I have a lot of questions still. So Shelley, I'm going to switch to a different question. I feel like I'm really
ready
for sure. And so research. Do you go out and do the research? Does your marketing group do the research? Is part one, simply that answer. And then once you have your opportunity pipeline per se, what CRM do you use?
Okay, well, I do the research. I know a lot of the folks in my company, when they see things that are happening out there, because we're reading different newsletters and different things like Melissa was talking about, or all of you will send me ideas, or someone's coming to town, or a new headquarters or whatever. So I'll put that research together, and then, also look into the markets that are growing and that type of thing. And then the CRM, that's a tricky point. If I had a nickel for every time somebody asked me what type of CRM system we use, because I've used so many in all these years that I've done this, and I've helped with an owner's rep firm. They actually started their own. We put all the information in, and then it just disappeared. So With StressCon, we're a precaster. So we use something that's called Concrete Vision. So it's made specifically for precasters. So it has everything that has to do with the production and erection and the accounting and that type of thing, but it also has a sales component to it. But that component is great because that's what we use every Tuesday morning for all my project managers go through their leads. I go through my leads, then people can see who's doing what, especially me, because I'm out here and people are like, oh, are you working on this? Or have you heard about that? And I go, yes, I think we already have that in the office, but I'll check for you. So I need to be on that all the time, if at all possible, just to make sure I know what everybody else is doing, because we've been around so long. You know, a lot of times we have a very good relationship with Pinkert's. You know, some of his guys will just call ours, say, hey, you put this together, and I don't even know about it. So mine is just keeping track with all of my seller doers, and then making sure with any CRM, whatever CRM it is, if they crap in, crap out. So if you don't put useful, good information in it, then it's not worth anything. So go ahead.
Are you the funnel? Are you the only inputter into your CRM, or do the seller doers also, are they active in, you know, talking to Pinkert and putting their own thing in, so it's not all for one person?
They put it in, but I'm kind of like the cog in the bicycle wheel, so they're all out doing their thing, but it normally runs through me, just so we have someone who knows what's going on. So I know the president of StressCon is like, I don't know this. Does anyone know that? Everyone, so call Shelly, because I don't know, it's because of being a mom or just a memory. Thank goodness my memory's still around. Just trying to remember who's doing what and who needs to follow up on what. So we do have two of our pre-con guys are the ones who take it off and move it from a deleted list. But as you guys all know, you know, there's a project you're tracking for 3 or 4 years, like a Glendale 180 or whatever, and it disappears, and then all of a sudden it's back. You know, so we have those.
Right. You need that tracking.
And everywhere. So those just sit on the sidelines so they don't muddle up the system of what the active projects are, or the active leads, I should say.
Okay, so Jim, I know that you at one point over the years you did create your own CRM, or I knew you were, you know, it was a big wheel to turn to implement that. So same question, who inputs the data into your CRM, and what CRM do you use? Real quick, and then I'm going to go to another question. So
sure, and this is the question that's worth everything you've ever paid for to go to this seminar, because we have done everything, we've tried everything. Currently, we are using AEC 360. I was not part of the selection process in that. Our marketing department was, because our hope is that we could write proposals out of this AEC 360. And I thought if we could do that and just short circuit, you know, having to redo everything in marketing, that business development could adapt to it. And so we did, and to that point, we use it every day. I'm in it all the time. But what we have found, because we wanted our other doer sellers to be part, you know, putting stuff in, it wasn't happening. So we finally bit the bullet and hired a marketing coordinator whose role is to own CRM. So if we have a superintendent that finds out about a job, or somebody, or even myself, and I'm out on the road, I just call Christine and say, hey, get this in to CRM or update CRM, and she takes care of that. Doesn't mean that we can't put our own stuff in, but it just was not happening, and we just beat our head against the wall forever trying to make it happen. Finally just said, okay, we give up. We're not going to, you know, get this square peg in a round hole. So we hired somebody to do that.
Okay. And do you use that data in your sales meetings as well as a tool for checking in, or how do you?
Where we're going with that is, and this is a whole different door you've opened. We are trying to get to the point where we'll have a dashboard for every person in the company, so that you can see, you know, what's your number? Well, I should be tracking X number of leads, or I should bringing in X number of projects. That every person will have their rating, and it'll all be in CRM, and then we can pull it out and everybody can look and see how they're doing on the dashboard every day, including their managers, which sounds a whole lot like Big Brother, and in some respects it is, but I do believe that accountability makes us all better. And so we're slowly getting to that place, and we're going to go a step beyond that actually at Pinkerton. We're going to implement, hopefully within the next year, a stand and deliver for all of our producers, that 15 minutes out of the day, everybody stands up in front of the Zoom call and gives their 3 minutes. Here's what I'm doing today for BD. Here's what I did yesterday for BD. And here's what is ongoing. And
Nice.
everybody in the company responsible will give a real quick update on it, which will force us to really think about, what am I doing today to help this company grow?
Yeah, and are you on plan or not? Yeah, good. Okay, so Melissa, real quick, what is the CRM if you are using one in your firm?
We unfortunately, go figure, 31-year-old firm. I was really shocked to see they didn't have one. But I will say, it having used several in the past, my go-to, which I'm pitching again to them this next week, is HubSpot. I find that unless you can have a great tracking system, the Ageras, the Deltex, they're not user-friendly, and it's not up to speed. And if it can track your emails, set your activities, it's the easiest one I've had to use so far. So hopefully we'll move into that.
Okay, all right, so you just have a couple minutes left, and couple more questions. So can you each give us, back over the many years of association membership, and tell us the organizations that you've been a part of that have been most effective for your career, that you would recommend to us to get involved in? So organization and or a couple of them that you have gotten a lot out of over your career. So Shelley, what you got?
Sorry, I'm shushing my dog. Well, of course, the BD Guild is something that you should all get about. So I have always, it changes when I create my strategic plan or our marketing plans. Like, these are my markets. So say I'm pushing education, I'm pushing parking structures, I'm in data centers. So I'm in whatever data center associations, I'm in A4LE, ALE, and COAPA, and I'm, so I try and be very targeted to whatever markets is in my plan. And then also, just in general, I've always thought ULI is just a great association just for in general, because it helps you connect with those, cities and counties. It helps you connect with the brokers and the people who are financing and, the projects, and also, the developers and then other architects and contractors and engineers. So I've always found that, and they have all great different local specific committees that you can be on. That, again, I'm on a TOD committee because there are large parking structures in transit-oriented development. So, and
Great.
that's my dog Ralphie crying in the background.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's
sure.
what I would say. And of course, SMPS is great over in general in marketing, but I really like that we have this BD Guild too, because that's kind of the next step.
Perfect. Okay, Jim.
That's an easy one. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. No, I'm just kidding. I have been on the programs committee, and that's, to me, the programs committee is the best committee to get on in any organization, because it then requires you to say, hey, I'm going to call somebody who you may or may not know. Without my Pinkard hat on, I can put on the NAOP hat and say, hey, I'm calling you with this in mind, and would you be a speaker at our event? And oh, by the way, let's have a lunch and let's get together, and then I can come in through the side door. So I have been a huge proponent of and member of NAOP, ULI, SMPS. We're members of the major associations for our 5 major markets. For instance, Leading Age in the senior market, or Housing Colorado in the affordable housing market. We join, and I go to those associations in each one of our target markets as well. But I agree with Shelley. ULI is probably the most universal. of them all. It covers each market, and I think it's also the largest in Colorado, over 1,500 members. So it's a great place to start. But if you don't get on a committee, you're really wasting your time.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that. I think that's great advice. You know, just like I talked about earlier, that's how we, you know, that's how I met you, Jim. That's how I met you, Melissa. Shelley, I just met you
Yeah.
because you're out and about
We're
at
at a party.
an event. We probably were on similar committees at
I
whatever
think
time.
there was a chocolate fountain there. That's what I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, that's what it was. I do it. Okay, Melissa,
Yeah,
real
but I
quick.
agree. Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
get involved. If you don't, if you just go, it doesn't do anything. You have to get
Yeah,
involved.
what you put into it, you're going to get out of it
Right.
for
Yeah.
sure.
I just want to
Okay,
say, don't spread yourself too thin because you can get
Yes.
too bogged down. I've done everything, and it really depends on what you're focused on. Being in a private sector, for me, Downtown Denver Partnership, which we just joined, I can get on a new member committee. I can start seeing who's there, introduce myself. Like everybody else said, ULI is fantastic. The committees are great. The programs are great. And a new one on the retail side is ICSC, which is a huge organization, a little more difficult to get on committees, but the networking similar to this, they had little breakout rooms as these were going on and you could just connect. And so, yeah, it really depends on what you're really focused on, but if you can get involved at least in 1-2 tops, because it will take a lot of your time.
Yeah. I'm voting because the follow-up that Jim talked about earlier, you want to be able to say what you're going to do, you know, do what you say you're going to do. And if you've got too many, then a lot of times that falls off. So I think I'm sensitive to time. I want to kind of throw this back to Ted. I know we have a networking time frame for the next 30 minutes where we can really discuss maybe some more questions from our audience and make sure that I'm just being respectful of all of your time. We had it going till 4:30. We could talk forever, as we all do. So I'll give it back to Ted or Joe and see how you want to kind of run the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, thank you. Ted had to drop off, so
Okay.
Ted and I are kind of switching roles here. But no, thanks. Great discussion, everybody. If you know, if anybody wants to ask a question, get on the screen and have a follow-up, you know, please do. Maybe just kind of maybe open it up to the crowd a little bit.
Yeah, I still have more questions too if, you know, we run on dry ground. But I do want to, if something came up that resonated while we're talking.
Yeah, you know, one question I had for Jim, listening in as doer, it's a seller doer, and you know, a number of the operational folks are going to be tasked either now or have been or will be in the future to put business development on their shoulders. So have you worked with folks who are kind of new to that and helping them pave the way into the business development, because you know that's being called on them before it wasn't? Or
Yeah,
how does that work
absolutely.
for you? Particularly for the youngster. Well, not the young, but the folks that
Right.
that's new to them.
And it's been a challenge. It's really about a company's culture. And for instance, you know, at Pinkard forever and ever, business development's role was to support operations. Well, until you can turn that around and say, no, operations role is to support business development. It's your job as a project manager, as an engineer, whatever. Your job is to help this company continue. And one of the ways you do that is by doing an excellent job. Absolutely. Another way you do it is more proactive, and you're going to help, you know, by going to an association meeting, by, you know, reaching out to your past client to become more of the seller. And we had hired a consulting company called Revenue Path Group out of Indianapolis, very interesting group. And the research that they have done, that buyers want to buy from the experts, not from the BD people. And so if you embrace that, if they're accurate and you embrace it, it really starts to change one's idea of what is BD's role. And it's not to make the sale, it's to, you know, help position the firm to make the sale. And part of that positioning is to train, mentor, coach others in the firm to be successful at coming in as the expert and making the sale. And whether that's just at an interview, which I think is not a good way to do it, but to cultivate relationships years in front of that interview, to me is the path to success. So it's a challenge because we have people in our company who just say, look, I'm not a salesman. Don't try to make me one. Leave me alone. And you have other people that, are the introverts that can barely talk to their own shoes, let alone yours. And, and then every now and then you find somebody that, enjoys getting out and enjoys relating to other people. So I look at the seller duo role, and it's not a short, it's not a light switch you're going to throw on, but I look at it as an HR issue. Are you hiring people that have that built into their DNA? It's part of their personality that they are comfortable or willing to do it. Certainly you can take the person who hates doing it and teach them something. You can take that shy Melissa and turn her into the extroverted dynamo that she is today. But Melissa's a unicorn. There are not many of her out there. Most people, their personality is what it is, and to try to force them to be somebody they're not just frustrates them, frustrates you. So I'm at this point in my career of saying it's a whole lot easier to look for the people who already have that personality bent, if you will, and work with them and train them and get a whole lot more results out of them as it is to drag somebody through the mud and make them feel bad about themselves.
Well, what I've noticed with a lot of our guys, because most of them are engineers, they're more than willing. They're a little nervous. So I break it off in small pieces. Say, this is your hit list. These are the folks I want you to contact. If you need my help, if you want to say, can you help me set this up, or you want me to go with you, I would be happy to do it. And then, like when I first learned precast, I would go to the bidding and the estimating and the meetings with them so I could learn how they do what they do. So I will go with them to help them just ask the right questions, stop and listen, and do the follow-up and that type of thing. So I always try and help them, and take it in small pieces. And that I've seen that help a lot because they're all willing. They're just a little nervous about going out there. And as they take those baby steps, they get more confidence. That's what I've seen with my firm so far.
Right. And that's part of the mentoring process.
Yeah.
We also do in-house training, and we brought in outside consultants, and it's everything you can think of and more to try to change that culture. And it takes a long time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just think the word sales can be intimidating. So,
Well,
it's
that's
really
why we
not.
That's why we have business development.
Right.
It was sales in the 80s and 90s, and it just developed. It just was a word that has got its own, connotation. And business development or client development manager, those terms have resonated more in our industry. Because it is a longer process. It is more people involved to close, one deal, from marketing to the expertise of your project manager to the, your doer seller, everyone. It's more to it than just a quick sale. It's not a quick sale. For sure. So what's something that you all, when you look back at your career, that you wish you would have done differently? That was a question that came in.
Oh, I wish I'd have been a hairstylist or something. Seriously. Just something that's always needed. That's a good question. I think when you're now, between all of us, 2 decades plus, it's really hard to get out of this industry. And I've thought about it because you do have, if anybody survived the recession of 2008 and previous ones, it's somewhat depressing. I like the industry a lot. I love the connections I've made. So it's to go into, say, business development just for healthcare or something else doesn't really have that appeal. So I don't know. I happened to just fall into this. Shelley was probably lucky enough and Jim know that they didn't want to be architects. I didn't know. And just, coming out of advertising, it just seemed like a natural progression for me because I could do the marketing, but yet you're you're watching the environment and what it creates, and what besides a land planner or an architect or an engineer, it's like, it's amazing the stuff that you don't think about, that, you know, we're so ingrained with every day, and you watch these buildings, you know, come out of the ground or renovate. So besides marrying a really wealthy man, I don't know, I guess I picked the right career. So
I have heard many a marketer and BD person, you know, long-term person say, you can't just drive down the road anymore, because you know what's going to come up, you know, what geotech work is being done on that corner, and you know what's happening with the city of, you know, XYZ. So it's hard. It's in your blood. You can't
Yeah.
My kids are like, shut up, Mom. We built that. We did that. We did that. Shut up, Mom.
Although I hear, you know, these eyelash places are making killer money, so that could be back, you know, like something like that.
Helene,
what about
I'm
you?
just thinking, you know what I would have done different? I think I would have got a degree in construction management rather than architecture.
Yeah.
Because I like design, but I'm more about how it's put together. But I didn't realize that. And because I would never leave this industry, because I love building stuff. But I think whenever I look back, I go, and we volunteer with Precast Concrete Institute at CU and CSU and all the different, so we go up to CSU quite a bit, and I'm like, oh, I should have done that. But oh well.
Very cool. Jim, anything? Now, Jim, yeah, tell us any regrets, what bumps in the road would you taken a different fork in the road, or what is it?
Well, I'll show you all the scars that I have
We
from bad decisions. No, I think there are two of them. One of them goes back to my college days, and I scoffed at the professor who told me this. And he said, if you want to make money, get into finance. And it's interesting today, as I do my job in business development, when people talk, I'm running numbers. I'm running numbers in my head saying, can we make any money at this? Is this a project that has any possibility for us to be successful as a company? And so to be able to run a pro forma, financial pro forma in your head, as people are talking about a job and running numbers and saying, well, what should that cost, and what's this going to take, and what's the probability of it going forward, and tell me about your financing. That is something that I wish I had learned a whole lot earlier. I mean, way early. Nobody gave me any financial, training from a BD perspective of, is this a project that I should even be chasing from a financial perspective? What's the chance of this job ever going ahead? And I can tell you all the wasted time that I've chased projects only to find out that that thing was never going to get financed. This is crazy. Why did I bother? So that's one. And the second one, which is probably even more important, and this is a little bit of true confessions, is that not everybody is right for every company. And I worked for a couple companies early on when I was just trying to figure out business development, and just got crushed. I'm trying my best. I'm working 20 hours a day, doing everything I can to make successful. And then you go and get fired, and you're going, what did I do wrong? I'm a total failure. But to realize that, people, I said square pegs round hole before, people are that way, and find the right environment for you, because you can doing the job you like to do, doing it with people that you like, in a culture that you like, is there. It is so important, and not to take it personally when, what, this isn't a good fit. These people don't treat me the way I want to be treated, because there are some wacky dysfunctional people out there that we'll come across in our career, right, Helene?
Hello.
And,
Remember that mentorship I mentioned before? Jim, like, help me through the dark side of one of those kind of firms. And
I'm nodding my head.
Yeah.
I'm nodding my head.
I know what you're talking about.
I have an author who I really like, and he goes, never trust a person who hasn't been broken. And that teaches you a humility and a respect for other people that you just can't get until it happens to you. And I never thought it happened to me, but holy Toledo, I went through the buzzsaw. And that's a heck of a lesson. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but it was probably one of the most important lessons in my life, was to, like yourself, like what you do, appreciate yourself. You got to pat yourself on the back, because in business development world, probably nobody else will. you know, I'm a one-off in a construction company, and nobody does what I do, and most of them don't understand what I do nor respect what I do.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
they think it's an instant, wow, we just got an instant win. Isn't that great? It doesn't get to them. They'd never know that that client, and this just happened, that client I've known for 25 years, and we just got our first job with them. So yeah, you're an instant success after 25 years of building relationships. And so you're not going to get a lot of attaboys as a business developer. And so how do you take care of yourself is really, really critical. And who do you, you know, spend time with in your network, within your competitors, and within in the industry. I mean, we all need each other at some point in time. And every day I come to work going, well, I better be nice because I may be asking that person for a job tomorrow.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
that's a tough lesson to look at, and you want to think that well, you know, I'm going to do a great job for this company, and they're going to take care of me and give me promotions and recognize me and give me appreciation. I'm still looking for that
Mm.
place.
Ah, that is a good place to
That's
be.
why we
I
have each
know.
other. That's why I like this. And that's why I've always tried to work with SMPS is, you know, all of you guys and all of this network that we create throughout these years. That's where we get our you guys pick us, you know, we help each other rise up. And I love that. And that's with our network. I always say, if I don't know that person, I know somebody who does know that person. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
so things like this are great.
And it does go both ways, Jim. I agree. The author, Joe, that was the guest speaker for Phoenix's event last month, Doug Fletcher, and How Clients Buy, that book, it was a great book. But one thing that really resonated out of that talk was it goes the other way, right? I mean, if you don't believe in your team, who you're selling, and the integrity of those professionals that you're representing, it just doesn't work. I mean, us as business developers have to fill that as well, not just the company to us. So I thought that was a great thing that came out of that talk for his book. There is another question from the audience. We got about 10 minutes, I think. So Amy, how are you? I haven't seen you in a long time.
Hi.
Hey,
Amy.
she asked, what do you guys like? What do you like best about what you do? Who hasn't gone? Melissa?
What I like best. I think to me, it's really gratifying when you're doing the digging and you finally make the connection and there is a project and there's a tangible, and it's like the C parts, and you're like, oh, when things just happen to come together perfectly. It's rare, but when it does happen, you think, wow, this is what it's all about. Just that connection, that when the synergy and the strategy. So that's what kind of keeps me going, I guess.
It all falls into place after
Yep.
all the different pieces that you worked
After
so hard
all the
on.
rejection, and I still say it's like bumbling. You are swiping right every day and going, somebody's going to say, yes, you're a match. And then somebody's going to say, maybe you can come to the wedding. And you're like, yes, this is so exciting. And maybe you'll get a proposal after that. You never know. So
Right.
it's always the thrill of the chase, kind of, you know.
I was just going to say that. I love the chase, right? You know, because when you get the rabbit, whatever.
Or the bumble. You get the bumble.
Or the bumble.
Yeah.
Shelley, what about
You're
you?
a match.
Very similar. Someone asked me that one day. I was driving home with our new pre-construction guy, and he said that. He goes, what do you like best about your job? And I go, I like to win. And I like the fact that no day is the same.
Yeah.
You know, I like, you know, those are my two favorite things. And I always call it, I watch too much Swamp People or whatever it was. I always call it setting my lines. You know, you go out and you set your lines. And then when they start hitting, when people start calling you to say, hey, can you help me? Hey, I saw this lunch and learn you did, and I really want to do a school at a precast. Can you help us? Well, sure. You know, yay, it's working. So when I get those things, and and this is, we got to toot our own horn. So I'll send, if I get an email that says you are going to be selected, blah, 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 this is your verbal, I'll send it to the president and I'll send it to some of the other folks. I go, just so you know, it's working, because we do have to do that. Like Jim said, They don't know what we do all day. They think we're just out there. What we're doing and who we're meeting with and doing all these things is very intentional. It's part of our plan. We know what we're doing and we're doing it for a reason. But most people don't know that, no matter how many times you explain it and tell them.
Right.
So, it's
I think
always
that's
making
huge.
sure that you are proving your value and showing how valuable you are.
And I think could be a whole other topic of internal communication.
Mhm.
I think, I know when I worked with Maggie at Palace, there was that sort of, well, what is business development doing? And we had to create this internal sort of structure of like, not just telling, the CEO what was happening and, those top C-level, but like the whole company, like how, so it is a challenge, and you're so busy doing what you're doing that you're like, oh yeah, and now I have to tell everyone about it. So, I mean, there is that's a whole subject, and I would love to know, how you guys do that, or if there's anybody still in the audience that has a great tool or a great way that you communicate internally. Chime in to that discussion. So Melissa, then what is your best, what do you like best about it? Did you already answer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's back to Jim.
Jim.
Jim likes us best. That's why he likes
That's right.
our 6-week breakfast. Every 6 weeks, you get to have breakfast. That's it.
Especially like it when you buy.
Yeah, and he has coupons. So
So in my personal profile, if you guys take them, the one that came out of Strength Finders, my number one personality trait is competition. So like you have said, I love to win, but the thrill of the hunt, the strategy to get there, all of that is part of that. But I think even greater than that for me is I really like helping people. So I don't consider anything that I do selling. I just consider myself helping people get what they want to get out of life, and how can I help you get there? And so, that's truly rewarding to me, is when you sit around and you come together with a project and it works financially, and you watch a developer or an owner going, wow, this is going to work. One of my favorite stories is we work with an affordable housing agency, and we got them into a budget, really tough budget. When we presented the numbers, she got up out of her chair, came across the room and hugged our pre-construction guy, who's just the most introverted person in the world, didn't know what to do. And we're just thinking, this is great. I love this. So just helping people, see their visions come true is makes me drive home going, hey, I moved the dial a little bit today.
Yeah, it's cool.
being a problem solver. That's what I always tell my guys. I go in as a problem solver. If our precast isn't the solution, then help them find the solution is. Whether it's not us, I said, just be a problem solver. Help them figure out how to fix whatever is wrong.
Yeah, that's a great approach. And then they don't feel like they're selling. You get that way from that term, or that those things that go along with things that they don't like about selling, because you are solving. And engineers and architects and contractors are programmed that way, right? They're problem solvers. So it's a great way to fight together.
Even just helping the group and the network here. Like, you create this great network. It's a small community when you really think about it. People come to you looking for their next job. You never know where they're going to end up. And you just feel, to me, just being able to introduce somebody to a new company that they would maybe have not have gotten an interview for, take the project outside of it. It just facilitates a better relationship with this person that will probably be very grateful in the end that you've helped them out.
Absolutely.